Alright, we're back in the No Spine Zone. News World Order live in your mobile home. So Bradley Manning.
Bradley Manning. Man, I'm glad we grabbed him. We're gonna black bag him, tag him, pack that homo away. Let's see him hack his way out of Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah, you know what you ought to do. Enhanced interrogation. Wait, there's a problem with my auto cue. What's that? Sorry, Bill, we have to interrupt. It just says you've been wanked. Stupid thing's stuck.
Wank, you say? I remember that from the NASA days.
Bill, we've been hacked, I'm afraid. Hacked? Fuck! We'll do it live! Fucking thing sucks! Do it live!
Wank. Only one man would use slang this way. It has to be Julian Assange.
G'day. Gentlemen, hey? I couldn't help noticing you mentioned my name.
Assange? How the hell did you get in the frame?
A simple hack. You left the back door open again.
Well, hack off your hands, leave you rolling in pain.
I thought we controlled this whole station.
Our signal's being jammed from an undisclosed location.
You're telling me we can't even get that fag?
Well, he's somewhere north, south, east, or west of Baghdad.
Bill O'Reilly, for dangerous defiance of reason and betrayal of journalism, I now try you for treason. Shut up! You just leak crap! You're dead! I think you'll find it's you that leaks crap and is dead.
Oh, what's happening to his head?
It's leaking every single bit of crap he's ever said.
We'll get you, Assange, and your little site too.
But 1,000 other sites will creep up behind you. I'm an avalanche. They didn't stand a chance against my battle plans. Robert, here, have your channel back. Apologies for the appalling violence. Julian, you look different. These days I can afford a stylist. Now the enemies of truth will cower before the avenging archangel and my brutal power. With the hammer of Thor, I will leap forth, crush the imposters.
I couldn't agree more.
Ah! What's going on here?
I think you know.
Is that Julian Assange?
Yes, it is. Hello.
Look at his hair. Everyone knows it's white. This isn't Assange, it's some loser with lowlights. Now get out of here, you fake Assange. It's time for me to leak the true fate of Atlantis.
No, it's time to see who the heck this is.
Terrence Moonseed.
Gat, you pesky kids!
Well, I think it's time to end this session. It seems journalism's become a dangerous profession, risking ostracism, extradition to provide a clear picture of the world we live in. But without truth, history will certainly repeat the same wars in this time of universal deceit. Telling the truth has become a revolutionary act, so let us salute those who disclose the necessary facts.
This is Robert Hutchins, a vigorous social critic, a great educator, a man who has helped to revolutionize our thinking on the role of education in America. His ideas continue to provoke debate when he says that despite all our talk, American education is still going down the drain. When he says that our Bill of Rights is not adequate to protect the individual in our modern society. When he talks about the role of religion in a free society. We'll talk about those issues with Robert Hutchins in just a moment. Of course, one public institution that has come under fire from all sides recently is our education, our schools, particularly since Sputnik, as you pointed out. Now, from all this hue and cry about education, what do you think has been accomplished and will be accomplished as a result of this jolt to our complacency?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing.
In spite of the slick magazines and the radio and television commentators and the newspaper editorials and all this, nothing. Why?
Because our complacency hasn't been jolted. It has been temporarily nudged.
Why hasn't it been more than temporarily nudged?
Well, you will recognize that the American people are, no matter what they say, are really indifferent to education. They can get temporarily excited about it. They want their children to have the diplomas and the degrees that will admit them to certain occupations. But the American people are not serious about education.
Well, I'd like to know why. You say the American people. Do you think that people from other countries are more serious about education? And what's wrong with us that we are not more serious?
Well, the reason other people are serious about education in other countries is that in other countries, education is the only road to success. In Russia, it's a road to very brilliant success, or may be the road to such success. In Europe, this is true, though perhaps to a less extent than it is in Russia. But education has nothing to do with success in the United States. A child of mine, I won't say a child of yours because such a thought is impossible, but a child of mine who was just above the level of moron could, I'm sure, acquire the diplomas and certificates that were necessary to enable him to get a job and make a comfortable living. So why should we get excited about education?
You've said, Mr. Hutchins, and I quote you here, by definition, a moron is a person who cannot think, and one of the benefits conferred upon us by the Industrial Revolution is that it has made it possible for morons to be successful. Would you care to enlarge on that?
Well, this is perfectly obvious. The object of industrialization is to reduce the amount of human effort and intelligence that is put into any single operation. Therefore, you finally get machines down to the point where they can be operated by 12-year-old children, or could be operated by them if the law would allow it. This means that it is possible for a moron to be successful. Now, the horror of this situation is not in the fact that morons can be successful, something which I heartily applaud. The horror of the situation is that people who are not morons are doing work that morons could do.
This is a 54-volume set of books titled The Great Books of the Western World. In Volume 1, The Great Conversation, Robert Maynard Hutchins has a few words to say about our sad state of education and overall competence. The summary being that we've all been programmed to be incompetent.
Chapter 10. A Letter to the Reader. We say that these books contain a liberal education and that everyone ought to try to get one. You say that either you've had one, that you are not bright enough to get one, or that you do not need one. You cannot have had one. If you're an American under the age of 90, you can have acquired in the educational system only the faintest glimmerings of the beginnings of a liberal education.
Can pigeons read? This one gives every indication, because he's been taught to distinguish between two words and to behave appropriately. He's learned his different response to each sign by being rewarded with food. So the bird isn't acting independently. Its behavior is shaped by controlling its environment. The first task was to isolate an individual piece of behavior and see how that could be changed. Skinner did this by keeping individual pigeons at about 3/4 of their normal weight, so that the birds were always hungry, and food could be used as an automatic reward.
The main thing is what we call schedules of reinforcement. Reinforcement is what the layman calls reward, and you can schedule it so that a reward occurs every now and then when a pigeon does something. We usually use a response with a pigeon pecking a little disc, a little spot in the wall, and you can reinforce with food, but you don't reinforce every time. Perhaps every 10th time, or perhaps only once every minute or something like that. There are a very large number of schedules. One of the schedules which is very effective with rats or pigeons is what we call the variable ratio schedule, and that is at the heart of all gambling devices, and has the same effect. The pigeon can become a pathological gambler just as a person can. Now, the fact that we found that out with pigeons and could prove it by removing and changing the schedule makes it easy for us to interpret the case with the human subject. We don't say that the human subject gambles to punish himself, as the Freudians might say, or gambles because he feels excited when he does so. Nothing of the sort. People gamble because of the schedule of the reinforcement that follows, and this is true of all gambling systems. They all have variable ratios built into them. So what we've learned from the pigeon, it made it possible to interpret this vast field very effectively.
Well, I'm sure he's not talking about controlling us, unless...
While some scientists engineer shiny new consumer goods for an eager public, Harvard psychologist B.F. Skinner seeks nothing less than the engineering of human nature.
Uh-oh.
Skinner declares that with the right social engineering, we can create a new breed of human being. Skinner wants to do the rigorous science to prove that environment is everything. Change the environment, he argues, and you can change the individual. Or in Skinner's case, the pigeon. And Skinner believes that if it works for pigeons, why not people? In Skinner's mind, behavior is behavior. up and down the evolutionary scale, and it is all learned.
Hi, I was in an army experiment, and I'm not feeling so well. I think it might have been the drugs they had me on. I've been hallucinating. My head is just killing me. My joints are all achy, and Is this a hospital, or... I don't even know where I am.
Please proceed to the diagnostic area on the right, and have a healthy day.
Oh. Thanks.
Thank you!
So, food to pigeons is akin to money and people, and they use the shortage, whether it's pigeons with food or people with money, to control us, right?
I think I'm starting to see how TV, operant conditioning, the rat race, and corporate advertising are all tied together.
Here they come, yo. Here they come. Here they come. This or that. This or that. This or that.
Come on, who's the black sheep? What's the black sheep? Know not who I am or when I'm coming, so you sleep. Wasn't in my realm or wasn't in your sphere. Knew not who I was, but listen here. The choice is yours. You can get with this or you can get with that. You can get with this or you can get with that. You can get with this or you can get with that. I think you get with this because this is kind of fat. Come on, where's the black sheep? Here's the...
Although few people have stopped to consider it, video game designers are increasingly turning to the realm of psychology to influence and manipulate those who are playing their games. For those who find such a concept far-fetched, there are two articles I'd like to direct them toward to begin putting this in perspective. First, we have here a particularly revealing article from Cracked.com from March 8th, 2010 under the headline, 5 Creepy Ways Video Games Are Trying to Get You Addicted. Reading from point number 5, putting you in a Skinner box, quote, if you've ever been addicted to a game or known someone who was, this article, with a link, is really freaking disturbing. It's written by a games researcher at Microsoft on how to make video games that hook players, whether they like it or not. He has a doctorate in behavioral and brain sciences. Quote, each contingency is an arrangement of time, activity, and reward, and there are an infinite number of ways these elements can be combined to produce the pattern of activity you want from your players. Notice his article does not contain the words fun or enjoyment. That's not his field. Instead, it's the pattern of activity you want. His theories are based around the work of B.F. Skinner, who discovered you could control behavior by training subjects with simple stimulus and reward. He invented the Skinner box, a cage containing a small animal that, for instance, presses a lever to get food pellets. Now, I'm not saying this guy at Microsoft sees gamers as a bunch of rats in a Skinner box. I'm just saying that he illustrates his theory of game design using pictures of rats in a Skinner box. This sort of thing caused games researcher Nick Yee to once call EverQuest a virtual Skinner box. So what's the problem? Gaming has changed. It used to be that once they sold us a $50 game, they didn't particularly care how long we played. The big thing was making sure we liked it enough to buy the next one. But the industry is moving towards subscription-based games like MMOs that need the subject to keep playing and paying until the sun goes supernova. Now, there's no way they can create enough exploration or story to keep you playing for thousands of hours, so they had to change the mechanics of the game so players would instead keep doing the same actions over and over and over, whether they liked it or not. So game developers turned to Skinner's techniques. This is a big source of controversy in the world of game design right now. Braid creator Jonathan Blow said Skinnerian game mechanics are a form of exploitation. It's not that these games can't be fun, but they're designed to keep gamers subscribing during the periods when it's not fun, locking them into a repetitive slog using Skinner's manipulative system of carefully scheduled rewards. Why would this work when the rewards are just digital objects that don't actually exist? End quote. Now, I would suggest interested viewers finish reading that article for themselves to find out the fascinating answer to that question, but right now let's jump over to that article by the Microsoft game designer that was referenced in that Cracked.com article. This article is on GammaSutra.com and is written by John Hobson. It is entitled simply enough, Behavioral Game Design, and at the very end of the article there is a summary for game designers giving helpful advice on how to make players play hard or how to make players play forever. Reading from that summary, quote,